Welcome back to tutorials on Adobe Lightroom Classic. We're continuing in our series on how to process color portraits. Previous tutorial we did our global adjustments. In this tutorial we're going to explore local adjustments, and that refers to these tools up here, right, that we haven't really gotten into yet. So we have our subject, right, our awesome model here. I'm going to click to zoom in, right, because I want to focus on the skin tone, face, the eyes, the portrait part of the aspect, and not so much about the background right now. First thing we're going to do is we're going to come under right here and use this spot removal tool. All right, so we don't want to get too carried away with these local adjustments. So this is like the photo retouching part, these local adjustments. We don't want to get too carried away. We don't want to make our subject look fake or plastic, right? And we're already starting with an amazing model here, so we don't have to do a whole lot, right? But I will show you how these tools work. All right, so I'm going to do a spot removal. Typically, what photographers do is if it is a permanent feature like a mole or freckle on your subject, typically people leave those in. All right, that's part of who you are. If there's a temporary minor blemish, a cut, some acne, a little burn, something like that, that's typically where something you would do spot removal. But I will show you with this area right here just because it stands out. Typically I would not remove this from our model, but if I were to click on this and I can right click on my brackets on the keyboard, so we have the bracket keys on the keyboard, left click smaller, right click, or right bracket bigger. I want to make it about the size of the thing I'm going to adjust. I'm going to have my opacity at 100 and I'm going to bring feather, I don't know, I'll try about 50 maybe, somewhere about halfway. And I'm using the Hsl tool. The difference between Hsl and clone will pull from another area in the picture and bring the exact colors and everything over, whereas the Hsl tool will pull from another area and blend it with the colors to where it's replacing. All right, so here I'll show you just to give you an idea. So I'm going to click on that. I'm going to let Adobe do its thing, and it's picking an area where colors match this area, and we're on the Hsl tool, so it'll look natural. But if I pull it over here, you could see where I'm pulling from the hair, and it's putting hair in but making it kind of the color of skin tone. Whereas if I did the clone tool, all right, and I pulled the same area, it pulls from the hair and it's the exact color from where it's pulling from, right? We don't want that. We want the Hsl tool while we're doing this. And I'm going to hit, let's see, I'm going to bring this back to kind of where it was at. All right, somewhere over there. Somewhere in that area. Boom. All right. Now, like I said, typically we wouldn't do that for our subject because that's a permanent feature. It just was noticeable and something that you can easily see. Now what you might come through is come in and click, and I'll do it kind of quick, just whoops. Hit some of these areas here. Accidentally exited out. I'm going to undo the last one because I clicked in the wrong spot. We can also do a series of things, like I can paint over an area like this, all right? And I can come in and do some basic spot removal like that. Now you don't want to get too carried away. I just want to show you how this works. And this is something that as a portrait photographer for weddings and stuff that typically you would want to do for your client. It's not to disrespect them in any way. It's just a lot of people pay good money for these portraits if you're doing this professionally, and this is something very common in the industry. All right, and I can come through and, like I said, select multiple stuff. I'm not going to go and do the whole thing just because the tutorial would last forever if I were to do that. But I want you to take the time and kind of come in, and I'm going to hold the space bar, right? We don't only want to do the face. I'm going to come down, and I can do other areas if I want and hold the space. But And that gives us our spot removal. I'm going to turn off here, right? And you can see some before and after kind of thing. All right. Next up, let's do some basic skin retouching. Now, a lot of these retouching things, a lot of people prefer to do in Photoshop. You get a little bit of control, but I find it to be pretty fast and easy and pretty effective in Lightroom with some of the new features they've added. So we're going to come over here to the right, and we're going to take this adjustment brush, all right? And I'm going to hold Shift, or actually I'm going to double click on Effect here, and I'm just going to reset it, set our brush. And there's some preset brushes. Right now it's set to increase exposure. I'm going to change that. There are some built-in ones down here, including soften skin. When I turn that on, you will see that it bumped clarity all the way to 100 and sharpness up about 25. 100 is probably too much. It will look Photoshoppy, like fake, all right, like plastic, like a mannequin doll. But we'll do it initially like that, and then I'll show you how you can scale it back afterwards. All right, so I have my brush, and it's probably a little bit too big, so I'm going to left bracket, all right, make it a little bit smaller. And I want to avoid the eyebrows, the eyes, and the lips. And if I go over it a little bit, we'll see how to fix that in a moment. And I'm just going to brush over this area with the retouching, all right? I'm going to get all of this, come in here. Now, if we had a stylus, like a Wacom tablet, oh, this is so much easier than with the mouse, or in my case with the trackpad. It's a little bit, oops, and I went in the hair too much, so I will fix that in a moment. I will show you how to look and fix the area. So we're coming over and we're doing this softening of the skin, all right? And this is technically or typically more preferable for females, sometimes for males, not as big of a concern, and the gritty texture of male portraits is sometimes desirable, all right? And I'm trying to avoid the hair, and we don't only want to do it on the face or else it will really kind of look weird, so we want to do it everywhere like that. And I could hit, whoops, didn't want it to do that. There we go. All right, I'm going to turn on with my, right down here, select mask, show masked overlay. And what this is going to do, oops, and I select my pen, you can see everything that was red is what I painted over. So I'm going to hit these areas where I didn't quite get, and then I'm going to make a smaller brush, left bracket, just kind of get in here a little bit, maybe over there, maybe right along the edge of the mouth. I'm going to hold Option, it's going to give me the minus key, and I'm going to make sure that I'm not outside of the face on the hair, and that I'm not in the eyes. All right, we want the eyes free. Some people want the nostrils free, and we definitely want the lips, eyebrows, stuff like that. It looks weird, like she's sunburnt, and we didn't make her red. That's just showing us where the effect is. And I'm going to turn that off so now we can see. And I'm going to hit Command plus to zoom in, hold the space bar, get the little hand, get back to the face area. Now with clarity, you can see that if I bring this down a little bit, it's going to bring detail back in the face, and you can adjust as you see fit. 100 you might think is too much, so you may come in and bring that down. I'm going to go do maybe like 80, something like that. All right. I'm going to do another new brush. So we've done spot removal, we've done skin retouching. Let's do some eye whitening. So I'm going to do new. Key thing here is new brush. All right, I'm going to switch from soften skin, and there is not one for eye whitening. So let's take teeth whitening. All right, and I'm going to bring saturation down to about -30. and you can see the exposure is increased. I'm actually going to zoom in again, Command plus. I'm going to zoom in on the eyes here, right bracket key, and even though it says teeth whitening, right, all we're doing is adding some exposure to the iris. I mean, not to the iris, to the whites of the eyes here, just to kind of make them pop. Like, the eyes are really the key. This is an area where you can get really overboard, and I think 40 might be a little much, so I'm going to bring it down a little bit. And you can see when you zoom out. Alright, so Command minus, zoom out. You can do the before and after, and we're looking pretty good, right? It's popping a little bit, but without looking too weird. We're going to do another new brush. Alright, in this particular one, Command plus to get back in near the eyes. New brush, custom setting, we are going to do Iris Enhance. And we want to enhance the iris here. It's going to increase the saturation, increase the clarity. I also like to bump up the highlights a little bit in here. So I'm going to do around 15. And I'm going to paint around the iris like that. Again, we can turn on the show mask overlay to kind of see what we've painted, and you can come in and get that. I'm going to come over on the other eye, get the iris over here, just bringing out some of that detail, again, just kind of making it pop. I'm going to hold spacebar, come down. Now our model is not smiling, right? But we could do another new brush, hit custom, and there would be teeth whitening. So if your subject or your model is smiling, teeth whitening, and do just like I did with the eyes and paint over the teeth. Some people also like to enhance the lips a little bit. So I'm going to do a new brush, custom. I'm going to double click on effect to reset, and I'm going to bring up saturation a little bit and a little bit of clarity, a little bit of exposure, and then right bracket key, and I'm just going to kind of enhance and make the lips pop. Alright, something along that nature. This is again optional, everyone's a little bit different. We can Command minus to zoom out. So now we're zoomed out, and I'm going to turn, you could see all of these little circles right here. These are areas where we've done adjustments, right? Local adjustments, different brushes, all right? Another one, and I didn't think about this, that some people like to do is they like to come in, and we're going to do a new one, and we're going to double click on effect to reset. We're going to bump up our highlights. I'm going to go around 30 like that for detail. And some people like to bring in some highlights and a little bit more detail in the hair. And you can see that if I go to the left, darkens here, kind of brightens it up a little bit like that. All right, what else can we do? Got our hair highlighting a little bit. Now we want to, I'm going to turn off that brush just so those dots go away. We can do before, after. We want to continue to draw the viewer's eye to our subject. All right, so we're going to take the radial filter right here, and we're going to double click on effect to reset that. And I'm going to draw an oval shape like this, maybe a little bit wider, covering kind of the general facial area of our subject. All right. what I want to do is have our subject brighter than the background to draw a little bit more contrast. All right, so I'm going to bring clarity down, and the way this works is that everything outside of the circle is being affected. If I wanted to affect what's in the circle, I would click invert like that. All right, and that's just adding more clarity, which is softening the skin. But what it does on the background is does kind of a fake bokeh. It blurs it a little bit. All right, then I also want to bring the exposure down a little bit. Ooh, not that much, right? The exposure down a little bit, kind of like a little bit of a vignette, brightening our subject here like this. Then we can do a before and after. I'm also going to do another new one, all right? And I'm going to do about the same thing. Whoops. Trackpad is struggling a little bit. Let's make that smaller. Come in. Going to do about the same type of thing here. I'm going to invert this one, and I'm going to bring the exposure up. Woo, not that much, just a little tiny bit to kind of brighten our subject here. And if we were to turn this on and off, you can kind of see that effect, all right? And that might be too much, so I'm going to come down like that. Close. Before, after, we're drawing our eye in. Let's come down to our effects. I'm going to add a little post-crop vignetting to the left. Just again, darken the edge, focusing again on our subject here. If we can also do under detail, if I can zoom in, there is not a lot of grain. All right, you could do some noise reduction if there was grain. I'm going to leave it off. If you're going for a film look, you might add some grain, but there we go. Last thing we can look at is Hsl Color under luminance. I can take my picker right here, and I want to pull this up just maybe a little bit, right? We can make our skin tones look a little, we can go one way, too bright. We can go the other way, too dark, and gets weird artifacting, right? So I'm just going to kind of come in and try to get what I might think looks like natural, and I don't even like it. So I'm going to reset it. Double click on luminance, get rid of it. I actually think we're doing pretty good right there. We got a nice portrait. We've done some photo retouching. Eyes are popping. We've cropped it. We've brightened up the area we're looking at. We have some pretty good tonal range. Got a little bit of a matte look. I think that's a pretty good start.